What is public exchange? We just turned 5 as an organization, so we are in some ways, I guess, sort of at the kindergarten stage of our life. We launched in February 2020 with a pretty straightforward mission. We partner with the public and private sectors to help our partners design smarter solutions to some of the biggest challenges that our world is currently facing. We are developing the first food systems data dashboard for LA County in collaboration with LA County. We've been working with them for 5 years on a large food insecurity project. We are developing a healthcare worker well-being program that is coming out of a collaboration with our own Keck School of Medicine here at USC. We have worked with a local water agency to help design uptake in strategies for uptake in water conservation programs locally. And one of our largest and oldest projects is the Urban Trees Initiative. Public exchange has grown a lot in our 5 years. In February 2020, I was the only team member. Today, we have 15 professional staff, and we've grown to a size where we've been able to launch 2 dedicated practices, a climate and sustainability practice and a health and well-being practice. We've worked with 25 partners and 125 researchers across 9 USC schools and 7 other universities, and those numbers are really growing in real time. Our projects have brought in just north of $13 million to support the work, and our research teams have published 17 academic journal articles. There are 3 legs of the stool to our public exchange model. The first is partnership. Everything we do is in partnership with an external organization in the public or private sector, sometimes more than one. The second leg of our public exchange model stool, so to speak, is academic expertise. So we spend our days talking to our partners to understand the challenges and the unknowns that they're facing. And then we go out across USC and increasingly across academia writ large to assemble the very best research team we can find. And then the final leg of that stool is project management. A really important part of our team are a group of very talented project managers. John and Mariana are 2 of those.
I am the project manager for the USC Urban Trees Initiative at Public Exchange. And this is a partnership between USC and the City of LA Department of Public Works and a number of local urban forestry nonprofits, including Northeast Trees and Koreatown Youth and Community Center. And we launched this project back in August of 2020. Really, our mission at USC Trees for short is to use USC's research expertise to equip local government and community partners with the right data and analysis to plant trees in LA neighborhoods most in need of shade. And I spend the bulk of my job as project manager really growing and maintaining these relationships with strategic partners who can actually implement what our research is recommending. We've guided about 950 trees and counting in East and South LA using our research, and we've attended numerous community engagement events. We've built story maps and GIS tools to accompany the 6 research publications, and counting a few more are pending review. And we've really established ourselves as trusted resources on various urban forestry related questions in LA and beyond. I spend a lot of time in city meetings, community gatherings, and other spaces where a researcher does not have the time or capacity to dedicate to, critical for establishing credibility with our communities and with our stakeholders, but also in understanding what the data gaps and what the needs are. And so I bring that back so that we can tailor our research again for this kind of impact engineering. So really it's seeing where our expertise lies and how we can prioritize our skill sets to make this the most effective project.
I am a project manager at Public Exchange working on our food security project. That's a collaboration with lots of folks in Los Angeles County, including a number of LA County departments and community organizations. And this launched right at the beginning of the pandemic in April of 2020 and has grown pretty substantially since then. Kind of our overarching goal is to develop data-driven tools and research that our partners can use to drive more effective programs and policies. This actually started in the pandemic because LA County was trying to distribute emergency food interventions because there was a real spike in food insecurity, and realized that the data they had to do so was several years old. And so Kate and Mariana at the time worked with our partners at the Chief Sustainability Office and really quickly stood up a research team that was able to provide the county with much more timely data than they had, and had a very tangible impact on the distribution of emergency food interventions. That was a crisis, but it was also sort of a wake-up call for LA County that food insecurity has been a huge challenge here for a really long time. It's a real crisis here. And so we've been working for the last 5 years in partnership with a number of different organizations at the county level and community level, really trying to support their efforts with real-time data and analysis. And we've done projects that are kind of deep dives on social and behavioral issues related to food access in specific parts of the county. I mentioned earlier, we regularly release food and nutrition insecurity briefs about the state of food access in the county. And we also have capabilities to do spatial and mobility analysis to show people where these needs are highest concentrated, and also how different mobility patterns are affecting these issues. We spend a lot of time doing a lot of the stuff that the researchers ideally don't have to spend their time on, so they can focus on the research. So that can be, setting up meetings with potential partners, giving presentations on the work, creating the assets, managing the timelines, all of those kind of classic project management things. How can this work? How can we maximize the impact of this work? We just spent a lot of time interfacing with other university departments, whether it's the communications teams who can disseminate the work really effectively, the advancement teams who can help us put together funding proposals, the offices of contracts and grants who can make sure that all of the administrative pieces are getting moved forward. And even if those things are available to our faculty partners, they're often really time-consuming and complex to navigate. And so we spend a lot of time trying to develop those relationships within the university too, to make the kind of whole 360 process as seamless as possible.
Public exchange essentially supports sort of three different types of return on investment, if you will, to universities. They are supporting the research enterprise, generating real-world impact and engaging the public, and creating student opportunities. We've brought in just north of 13 million to support our project work since our founding. A large percentage of that goes to the researchers who are actually doing the work. Since our launch, we have created 125 funded research opportunities for faculty, staff, and students. And this chart will give you a bit of a sense of what that breakdown looks like. Finally, public exchange gets its funding from a diverse mix of sources. Universities are going to have to figure out how to work with a wide mix of potential funders to do this kind of important work. We've learned a lot in the past 5 years about how to do that, and we're really excited to continue developing these relationships.
How exciting and surprising it was to see researchers so energized and excited about getting their work into people's hands and making more tangible change. And there's just a real joy and excitement in bringing research outside of our kind of ivory towers.
The public exchange model was really designed to be a scalable model. It was designed to be able to operate at sort of a wide variety of universities and institutions. The real power of the public exchange idea and model is working across institutions and figuring out streamlined ways for academic institutions to build really powerful projects. We have found a real sweet spot in working with new centers, new research centers, or centers in formation. What we found is that faculty who are starting new centers are often very interested in working with us because partnerships can really help get those centers off the ground. They can publicize them and get some initial funding for research collaborations for them.
Momentum tends to beget momentum, starting with something really small and tangible that we could kind of contribute to the larger issue ecosystem, and then building from there. Because when those small things were successful, it started to build trust with our partners to say, hey, these guys can really provide me with data that I can really use. Or our partners within the university who would say, folks at university relations who are always talking to elected officials, like, hey, this is really tangible work that I can take and share with these elected officials, that helps me in my work as well too. So I think starting with something really tangible and building from there is a good way to go.
We definitely have a number of graduate students on our teams, and I think really having these kind of applied research projects is very exciting for these newer generations of students, and also makes them reflect on kind of the career path they want to choose. Maybe they're not so keen to continue with traditional academic research, and maybe they're interested in pivoting more towards other public or private sector opportunities. So that's where we've really seen, it's wonderful to see as a project manager, this kind of light bulb moment go off for our graduate students on the teams.
The lead researchers will have some of the PhD students or other graduate students be co-authors on the publications, which builds their body of work. Similarly, Kate mentioned earlier, we often see people go and then work in other sectors.
think something that we love working with our research teams on is, okay, we've got these really interesting findings. We're contextualizing them for our partners, but how do we really bridge the gap from there to giving them to the partner in a form that they can actually use?
So a lot of what we do is just taking the research and translating it into something that will have that kind of punch and have that kind of impact that we're looking for at the end of the day.
A great example of this is these really short briefs that we do once or twice a year, because as a research product, they're pretty concise, and the research that goes into them is incredibly extensive, but we work very actively to really distill the top line takeaways from the research into a very brief format, 2 to 3 pages, and really enable the researchers to stay in the deep rooted research, but then helping them to kind of zoom out and say, okay, if somebody's in a position to act on all of this work, what are the key things that they really need to know? And literally translating those into assets that are well designed and easy to kind of digest and act on for our partners.
We spend a ton of time as a team thinking about how do we bridge that gap? How do we get better and better about bridging that gap from sort of research to action? And I think the researchers we work with have really sort of enjoyed the questions that we can bring to the table as people who have, as myself speaking in my former roles, have taken research reports and tried to make decisions with them. And so I think that synergy of the two different viewpoints is a really powerful one. Something that I did not expect was just how much hunger there is in amongst the research community for this kind of support, whether it's coming from a public exchange or another type of program. Clearly, I think you have a real demand. Hundreds of researchers who want to bring their skills to, make an impact. There just simply isn't the infrastructure inside most universities to give them that support.
They're best at what they're trained to do, but with a little help from staff and folks like John, Kate, and myself, that you can really turn traditional research into more of this applied research and have an impact way beyond our campus walls.